Okay, so now we are going to discuss the antigen presentation by class 1 MHC molecules. Now listen, class 1 MHC is present in any nucleated cells, right? That's why, now listen, any nucleated cell, that's why RBCs lack class 1 MHC representation. Why? Because they are not nucleated. Okay. Now a very important point you need to understand is this, that in case of class 1 MHC, in case of class 1 MHC, the first thing you need to understand is this, that class 1 MHC actually presents endogenous proteins. Okay, endogenous proteins, that means what? Proteins which are present inside the cell. Now listen with all your attention. When I talk about exogenous proteins, you know that class 2 MHC will present them to CD4 positive cells. But when I talk about class 1 MHC, many people are confused that what do you mean by endogenous proteins? How can an endogenous protein, that is the protein produced within the cell, can be an antigen? Now listen, coronavirus, right? Something about coronavirus or any virus which attacks us like HIV or something like that. What happens there? Actually what happens is, let me give you a brief introduction to the world of coronavirus. Okay, now listen, what happens is, suppose this is your coronavirus, okay, and coronavirus actually have an envelope which is made up of phospholipid bilayer like this. Okay, now listen with all your attention. What happens is this, coronavirus have these spikes, okay, have these spikes, okay, have these spikes. Now these spikes actually are actually ligands. These spikes act as ligands, okay, acts as ligands for a receptor, and the receptor's name is angiotensin converting enzyme. How can an enzyme be a receptor? Now listen, angiotensin converting enzyme actually are present like this. Okay, that means angiotensin converting enzymes are actually transmembrane proteins, clear, where they will bind angiotensin. But a very important point, angiotensinogen, okay, and suppose this is a lung cell. Now what will happen is this pretty much ugly looking coronavirus will attack or will bind with this ACE receptor, okay, angiotensin converting enzyme type 2, ACE2. Okay, now what happens is this, after that this whole thing happens, that is the internalization of this virus will happen, internalization of this coronavirus will happen. And a very interesting point you need to understand here is this, that this coronavirus actually is an RNA virus. That means it has got an RNA. Okay, it has got an RNA. What will happen is this RNA will be, suppose this is just for understanding, I am drawing this thing. Suppose this is our DNA, okay, and what this virus will do after entering through internalization, all this, what this virus will do, it will actually, okay, let me draw this RNA with the different colors. Suppose this is the RNA, okay, of the virus. Now after the entry of virus, what will happen is this, suppose this is our DNA, and this virus will convert this RNA into a double stranded DNA. It will convert this RNA into a double stranded DNA, and this double stranded DNA will be integrated into our double stranded DNA. Okay, clear? Suppose this is our double stranded DNA, portion of the double stranded DNA. Now what happens is this, that this portion will be integrated into our DNA. Okay, now okay, this portion is viral DNA, sorry, this portion is the viral DNA, this blue colored portion is the viral DNA. Now a very interesting point you need to understand here is this, that from this viral DNA, when our genes are transcribed, virus will also transcribe and translate its own proteins, and therefore this nucleus which was present in our cell now becomes a factory for the virus, from where it can produce its own proteins and all these things, and this is how this cell will be destroyed. Now, is there anything we can do? Is there anything this cell can do? Yes. What is that? You know what is that? Now listen. Suppose this is the DNA, right? This is the DNA, right? From this DNA, a RNA will be produced, right? And RNA will be produced. Now, a very interesting point you should understand, and you should ask me even, that if this virus was actually carrying an RNA, why the virus needs to convert an RNA into DNA, then again into an RNA? This is because of the fact that this RNA is actually not recognized by our translational mechanism. Clear? Our enzymes, our ribosomes does not recognize the viral RNA. Therefore, this is very important for the virus to at first convert it into a cDNA, and from this cDNA it will be integrated into our DNA, and then from this cDNA this RNA will be produced, and this RNA will actually be recognized by our ribosomes. Clear? Okay. Now, suppose this is your, okay, suppose this is your, again we have got this, suppose this is your endoplasmic reticulum. Okay. Now what happens is this, from this RNA a protein will be produced. Okay. A protein will be produced, suppose viral protein by the shape of this. Okay. No, okay, by the shape of this. Okay. Viral protein in the shape of this, suppose example. Now, how this protein will be produced? That this protein will be produced on the membrane of, ribosomes, right? This protein will be produced on the membrane of ribosomes. Okay. Suppose this is the protein. Now, this is the primary structure. Now, this primary structure will be converted into tertiary structure by the help of our chaperones, that is calnexin and calreticulin and all these things. Okay. Now, suppose this is the protein. This is the viral protein. Okay. V for virus, so we will draw like this. Okay. Suppose this is the viral protein. Okay. So this is dangerous protein, arrow, V for virus. Okay. So this is the viral protein. Now, you have previously learned, now we will be talking in details, that class 2 MHCs are also present in the endoplasmic reticulum, right? This is what? This is ER, right? Class 2 MHCs are also present in the ER, but they are loaded with what? Invariant chain. They are loaded with invariant chain, right? Now, when these endoplasmic reticulum have produced the viral proteins, that means due to the invariant chain, viral protein cannot interact with the class 2 molecules. They have only one option. What is that? What is that? That is class 1 molecule. Now listen, if you think that was really easy for us to understand, that is not that case. You know why? Because this is a viral protein, right? It will be secreted then and there. After the production it will be secreted. Now listen with all your attention. When it is secreted, now listen with all your attention. When it is secreted, it has got, suppose, 2 parts. Okay. Suppose it has got 2 parts. This is the first part and this is the second part. Because of the alien nature or unknown nature of this viral protein, there is an enzyme called ubiquitin ligase. Okay, Hecht ring and all these things, we will talk about that later. Ubiquitin ligase. Okay. Now listen. Ubiquitin ligase will actually ligate. Ubiquitin ligase will actually ligate ubiquitin molecule to this viral protein. Okay. Now, when any protein is ubiquitinated, then this protein is destined for destruction, right? You know that. Okay. Now, who will destroy this protein? Now listen, when any protein is ubiquitinated, then that protein will be destroyed by a protein chopping machinery known by the name of proteasome. Okay, known by the name of proteasome. This is a protein chopping machinery. Okay, it is called proteasome. Okay, it is called proteasome. Now what will happen is this, this ubiquitin-ylated protein will now enter, this ubiquitin-ylated protein as a whole will now enter the protein chopping machinery, okay, and will come out as peptides, clear, and will come out as peptides, okay. Clear, and will come out as peptides. So through this pathway they have gone and they have come out as, you know, peptides, okay. Now, so this viral protein which was produced in the ER will come out and will be ubiquitin-ylated by ubiquitin ligase, and then they will enter the proteasome, okay. Then they will enter the proteasome. Then they will enter the proteasome and will undergo proteasomal degradation, and peptides will be produced, right? These are viral peptides, okay, or antigenic peptides, whatever it is. Now, a very interesting point will, you know, or very interesting, you know, part will now occur. You know what is that? There is a protein present here, okay. There is a protein present on the ER membrane, okay. There is a protein present on the ER membrane, and this is a, you know, dimer. This protein is a dimer, okay. This protein is a dimer. Now listen with all your attention possible. This protein will actually allow these peptides, viral peptides, to enter the ER again. This protein will allow the entry of viral peptides into the ER again, so that they can interact with class 1 MHC. Now this protein, which is forming a heterodimer, which is forming a dimer, is called TAP, TAP, transporter associated with antigen presentation, okay. TAP stands for transporter associated with antigen presentation. So this is TAP protein. Now what will happen is this TAP protein will actually act like a transporter which will transport these peptides, okay, which have been processed or which have been chopped by, you know, proteasome, okay, clear. So now the antigenic peptides have entered the ER membrane, right, but this time they are chopped by, you know, what? They are chopped by proteasome. Now listen, very interesting point here you need to understand is this, that this is a protein, you know, and this protein actually is associated with TAP, okay. Now what this protein is holding here is, now listen, now this is your beta 2 microglobulin, right? Now listen with all your attention. This peptide, this red peptide is very important. Why, you know? Because this red peptide is actually the reason why the MHC class 1 is always associated next to TAP. Now listen, this red peptide actually binds MHC class 1 with, you know, TAP. Why? Because the peptides, antigenic peptides which are entering through tap may directly interact with the cleft. Okay, that's why they are kept near this particular protein or this channel. Now this protein, this red protein is called tepacin. Okay, is called tepacin. Is called tepacin. Clear? Or tap associated protein. Okay, tepacin. Now what will happen is this: unlike class 2 MHC, class 1 does not have any invariant chain, right? Therefore this antigenic peptide now can bind directly with this with this antigenic cleft of MHC class 1, right? Clear? Now what will happen is this, that this is what? Endoplasmic reticulum. Now this whole MHC plus this antigenic peptide will now come to Golgi body, and then after that they will come to the surface of the cell. Okay, they will come to the surface of the cell. Okay, so suppose this is your ECF. Okay, now listen, what will happen is this whole thing, this whole MHC class 1 associated with antigenic peptide will now move towards the Golgi body, right? Will now move towards the Golgi body, right? Will now move towards the Golgi body. Clear? Will move towards the Golgi body. Okay. Now after that what will happen is this whole thing, this whole association will now move towards the extracellular surface. Sorry, not the extracellular surface, towards the surface membrane, right? Now what will happen here is this. That this will be, this whole thing will appear like this. That means, so let me draw it here in a simple manner. So this is your MHC class 1, right? This is beta 2 microglobulin, and this is your what? Antigenic peptides. Okay. Now what will happen is this. So this is beta 2 microglobulin, right? Now what will happen is this whole thing will now be this whole thing will now be presented to CD8 positive cells, right? CD8 positive cells like cytotoxic T lymphocyte, okay, CTLs. Okay, clear? Now listen, class 2 MHC actually interacts with T helper type 2, but CD8 positive cells means one of the best example of CD8 positive is CTL, that is cytotoxic T lymphocyte. Okay, clear? So this is the mechanism by which endogenous proteins are presented to CD8 positive cells by the help of class 1 MHC. Now a very interesting point you need to understand is this, that suppose this is a bacteria and this bacteria has entered. Okay, suppose this is the bacteria and this bacteria has entered. Okay, now what will happen, that these bacterial proteins will now again be converted into by the help of endosome, they will be converted into antigenic peptides, right? Now listen, these antigenic peptides can also be presented to CD8 positive cells by MHC1, class 1 MHC. Okay, another thing I actually forgot to mention, okay, that is the transport of these antigenic peptides into the endoplasmic reticulum by TAP is an ATP dependent process. Okay, TAP you know, TAP consumes ATP for transporting antigenic peptides. Clear? Consumes ATP for transporting antigenic peptides. Okay, clear? Consumes ATP for transporting antigenic peptides. Clear? Okay. So this is the basic difference. This is the basic difference between, you know, class 2 MHC antigen representation and class 1 MHC antigen presentation. Clear? Okay. Any questions? Why they are called endogenous antigens? Why these are called endogenous antigens, right? Now listen. What will happen is this: when this, you know, thing has formed, that is endosome is formed, and, you know, this bacteria has been killed, and this has been converted into small peptides by lysosomes. Now a very interesting point you need to understand here is this, that these are now present inside the cell. These antigenic peptides are now present inside the cell, therefore they are also considered as endogenous proteins. Okay. Now a very interesting point you need to understand is this, that some endosomes actually fuse with ear. Some endosomes fuse with ER, okay, endoplasmic reticulum, and the antigenic peptides which are contained in these ER, which fuse with antigenic peptides which are contained in these endosomes, when they come in contact with, or when they, you know, join the ER mechanism, then they will actually, you know, get associated with class 1 MHC. Okay, they will associate with class 1 MHC. Clear? Clear everyone? Okay. You know, there is an interesting topic which we should, you know, there is an interesting topic which we shall discuss right now. There is a bacteria called Listeria monocytogenes. There is a bacteria called Listeria monocytogenes. Listeria monocytogenes. Okay, monocytogenes. You know what is the specialty of this bacteria? When an endosome, suppose this is an endosome, okay, suppose this is an endosome, and suppose this is a bacteria, suppose this is the, you know, Listeria monocytogenes, suppose this is the Listeria monocytogenes, okay, very notorious one, okay, and they have these antigens, okay. Now what will happen is this, these bacteria have a special mechanisms. You know what is that? They will create holes. They will create holes by the help of a, you know, protein called listeriolysine. They release a protein called listeriolysine. They produce a protein called listeriolysine, and these listeriolysine will produce or punch holes in these endosomal, you know, vesicles, and from these holes these bacteria will come out. From these holes these bacteria will come out, and they will evade our, you know, immune system. Clear? Okay, so this is a very interesting, you know, case study. Okay, how these bacteria are killed in our, you know, cells in our body. This is also a very interesting part, because they are not, you know, properly, you know, their antigens are not properly, you know, presented by class 1 and class 2 MHC, because they evade our immune system. But how they are killed in our body and how drugs, you know, do that, we will talk about that later when we will talk about pharmacology. Clear? So is there any questions? Okay, no questions up to this. Okay, now listen, those of you who are watching the video, if they have any problem also, you can write it down in the comment box. Okay,